Good evening, everyone. The former police officer whose actions are at the center of the firestorm of protests sweeping America appeared via video in a Minneapolis courtroom today to face charges in the death of George Floyd. As Derek Chauvin was arraigned for murder and manslaughter nearly 1,200 miles away in Houston, long lines formed at the public viewing of Floyd ahead of his funeral tomorrow. While across the country, the marches for justice and equality are unabated. Our Gabe Gutierrez has the latest.
In an orange jumpsuit and wearing a blue face covering, former officer Derek Chauvin faced a judge for the first time over a video link, charged with second-degree murder and manslaughter after the death of George Floyd. A judge set bail at $1 million with conditions, including supervised release and surrendering any firearms. Chauvin's lawyer, once again, did not comment on the charges.
No justice, no peace. Say his name, George Floyd.
The case has rocked the Minneapolis Police Department, which is also under a state civil rights investigation. One day after the mayor was booed for not committing to abolishing the police, a veto-proof majority of the city council pledged to disband the department and replace it with more community-based policing, though details could take up to a year.
We're not talking about hitting the eject button on the police tomorrow. We're talking about engaging a plan to create a public safety system that works for everyone.
Meanwhile, a lawyer for another officer involved says Floyd was resisting arrest.
He didn't do anything wrong. He was a police officer trying to do his job.
Earl Gray represents ex-officer Thomas Lane, who'd only been a cop for 4 days.
He was doing what he thought was right.
Lane is now in solitary confinement, accused of aiding and abetting second-degree murder.
How is it possible that your client stood by and watched for nearly 9 minutes?
He did not stand by and watch. He was holding the legs because the guy was resisting at first. Now, when he's holding his legs, he says to Chauvin, well, shall we roll him over? Because he says he can't breathe. Chauvin says no.
Lane's attorney now says he plans to subpoena the unreleased body camera video as part of a future motion to dismiss the case. Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News, Minneapolis.
I'm Joe Fryer in Houston, where today a long line wrapped around Fountain of Praise Church, like outstretched arms welcoming George Floyd home one last time.
Our messaging is really to provide hope and help, and to help people to really kind of begin to heal.
Despite a heat index of 100 degrees and the need to social distance and wear masks, a massive crowd came to Floyd's public viewing, including many who had never met him.
And we're all family at the end of the day anyway, so we're here to support the movement and support the Floyd family.
Floyd's family met privately today with former Vice President Joe Biden, this photo tweeted by the family's attorney. Though Floyd was born in North Carolina, he grew up in Houston's inner-city 3rd Ward neighborhood, where a mural now pays tribute.
This is where it started from, and he was somebody.
At Jack Yates High School, Floyd was a 6'6" star athlete, making it to the state football championship and earning a college basketball scholarship.
So your first alley-oop was to
My
George?
My first alley-oop was to George Floyd. His heart was just like gold, man. It was the perfect guy, man. Perfect guy on our team.
He's still remembered by a second-grade teacher, Waynell Sexton. She recently dug up one of Floyd's old assignments from Black History Month.
I want to be a Supreme Court judge.
A dream inspired by Thurgood Marshall.
We could never have predicted when we were in that classroom what the impact that this 8-year-old was going to have on justice. He wanted to work in the area of justice, and he has certainly fulfilled his dream.
Not in the way anyone would have imagined. Now Floyd's heartbroken hometown is saying goodbye.
It's a tough day, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. It is. Yeah. It is. But there's another side to it. There's the hope.
Following today's viewing, there will be a candlelight vigil tonight at Floyd's high school. His funeral will take place tomorrow, and he will be buried next to his mother. Lester.
All right, Joe Fryer tonight. Joe, thank you. And tonight, no sign that the protests and demands for change are letting up as new demonstrations take place from coast to coast. Most of them peaceful, but not all. Here's Miguel Almaguer.
In cities big and small, crowds are surging to record numbers, 50,000 at this march alone, the largest so far in a single day, says the LAPD. The call for police reform, backed by a tidal wave of momentum and a sea of demonstrators flooding the streets every day.
I will be protesting until we don't need to protest anymore.
The fight for police accountability not just unfolding in big cities like Washington. From Billings to Green Bay to Des Moines, protests swelling, showing no signs of slowing after nearly 2 weeks. The mayor of Austin joining this crowd in Texas.
I think people that look like me need to spend a little bit more time listening.
As the nation focuses on police tactics, in Fairfax, Virginia, officers charged one of their own with assault and battery after this arrest Friday. The chief said this tasing and head blow of a man disorderly in the streets was an excessive use of force.
Unacceptable. I'm just disgusted.
It comes amid calls for a Missouri police officer behind the wheel of this unmarked SUV to be fired after striking a man who appeared to be running away. The clash between officers and demonstrators continues to unfold in some violent confrontations. In Seattle, police say a man appeared to intentionally drive his car into a crowd, later pulling a gun and shooting a protester as tensions reached a boiling point.
But for the most part, protests nationwide are peaceful. In cities like Los Angeles, the National Guard is pulling out as curfews are lifted.
Tonight on the streets of our nation, another call for action in a history-making movement. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Tonight, across the country, there is a growing movement to defund police departments. But what exactly does that mean? Well, apparently not the same thing to everybody. Morgan Radford explains.
Tonight, a rallying cry to defund police departments across the country. The movement calls for cutting down police budgets and reinvesting that money into services for marginalized communities.
If you defund police, what does it actually look like?
911 calls will do what they already do, but probably better. What if it could bring social workers, public health workers, substance abuse workers, child protective workers, instead of just police, fire, and ambulance?
It's a push several cities across the country are now discussing. Among them, New York City, with a police budget of nearly $6 billion. This weekend, the mayor saying he'd like to move some of that funding to youth and social services. In Los Angeles, the LAPD was expecting its largest ever annual budget increase. But instead, the mayor says he now wants to slash up to $150 million from police funding. But many who have answered the call of duty say less money for the departments could also mean less public safety.
Is there a risk?
Absolutely, there's a risk. You are risking officers requesting for help or a backup and it not being there. You are risking the delay of investigations of violent crimes like murder, rape, assault.
But while the debate over funding reaches a fever pitch, police reform is already underway. In Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, a push to ban the use of rubber bullets and tear gas. Chokeholds are already banned in Denver, Colorado, and Nashville, Tennessee is now part of the growing number of cities requiring police officers to wear body cameras. Camden, New Jersey overhauled its police department in 2013 to focus on community policing and has since seen a 40% drop in violent crime.
So is community policing working?
1,000%, yes.
A country searching for solutions and beginning to heal as the calls for change grow even louder. Morgan Radford, NBC News, New York.
Meantime, tonight, President Trump and his Democratic opponent, former Vice President Joe Biden, are both weighing in on this defund the police movement. And Kristen Welker tells us about it from Washington now.
Aiming to capitalize, President Trump is again calling himself the law and order president and trying to cast Democrats who support the movement to defund the police as anti-law enforcement and radical. The president meeting with law enforcement officials today at the White House.
We won't be defunding our police. We won't be dismantling our police. We won't be disbanding our police.
A spokesperson for the president's Democratic rival, Joe Biden, said Biden is also opposed to defunding the police, but does support significant reforms to police departments nationwide. On Capitol Hill today, Democrats unveiling their own proposal. NBC's Casey Hunt.
The sweeping Democratic proposal would make significant reforms to police departments, banning chokeholds, making it easier to prosecute an officer, and creating a national database of police misconduct. But it faces an uphill battle in the Republican Senate.
House Democrats also taking time to kneel for 8 minutes and 46 seconds in memory of George Floyd. It comes amid a growing course of criticism of the president's handling of the aftermath of Floyd's death. The retired Joint Chiefs Chairman Colin Powell becoming the latest former military official to criticize Mr. Trump. Powell, who served 3 Republican presidents and 1 Democrat, and who voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, endorsed Biden over the weekend, accusing the president of dishonesty.
He lies. He lies about things. And he gets away with it because people will not hold him accountable.
Also over the weekend, Republican Senator Mitt Romney marching with protesters outside the White House.
We need a voice against racism. We need many voices against racism and against brutality. We need to stand up and say that Black Lives Matter.
The president responding to Romney on Twitter today, writing, "Tremendous sincerity. What a guy." And near the same spot where Romney marched, this photo was captured. The mayor of Washington, D.C., posing with civil rights icon Congressman John Lewis, where the words Black Lives Matter are now painted on the road to the White House. Meanwhile, in an interview tonight, Attorney General Bill Barr appeared to contradict President Trump, who said he only went to the White House bunker during the initial protests to inspect it. But Barr saying the Secret Service recommended he go in response to those protests.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.